another episode of Exit Rich. Every week we continue to bring you really good, solid content so you can continue to grow a sustainable, scalable, and when you're ready, sellable business. And today is no different. In fact, you really need to get your notebook ready so that you can experience AI. Yes, ladies and gentlemen, we're talking about artificial intelligence today. Artificial intelligence. Now, I am hearing myself, I am hearing a little echo somewhere. I don't know if that's on your end, Jordan.
You sound good here, Michelle.
I want my team to check this out real quick. So, team, you hear me? I hear an echo. Anyway, all the roles been asking about AI. How do we use it? When should we use it? How does it work? Can we trust it? And so we're here to have Jordan Wilson, who's really dug in and is inviting clients every day on how you can use AI in everyday life. So, who is Jordan Wilson, you ask? So, Jordan Wilson is a founder and CEO of Accelerate Agency, a boutique digital strategy company based in Chicago, one of my favorite cities, that scales startups and small businesses. Most recently, Jordan created and included an everyday AI, a media company dedicated to helping everyday people, just everyday people like us, really understand and use generative AI through a daily live stream podcast and a free daily newsletter. So we got to make sure we subscribe to his newsletter. Everyday IA has quickly become one of the fastest growing podcasts in the tech industry. And I remember Jordan was telling me there's like, what, 40,000 podcasts just based in tech. And
So
so
many.
Jordan's moving up that chain pretty quickly. So, Jordan, welcome to the show. We're very happy to have you here. And we're very excited to hear more about AI because, a lot of people are like, what is it? What does it do? Some people are scared of it, some people are excited about it. But before we dive into AI, let's talk a little bit about you, Jordan. What were you like as a little boy?
Yeah. Michelle, first, thanks for having me. So yeah, Jordan as a little boy um, was probably I'm not too much different now. I wouldn't say.
I was going to say, you look
Yeah,
young. So,
I feel well. So I'll say this: I feel I've always been a creator. I've always kind of been an entrepreneur. So some of even my earliest childhood memories was setting up like a lemonade stand. With my friends and while my friends would just kind of sit there and kind of do what you would think a little kid would do at a lemonade stand. I didn't know what this was called at the time, but I was running A/B tests. Like one day I would put the sign on the east side of the street. The other day I would put it on the other side and I would write down, I was young, I don't know,
how
five,
old are
six,
you?
seven. Yeah,
Oh
I
wow,
was
that's
young.
really young to be that analytical and really
Yeah,
testing.
yeah, exactly. But I would write down the different changes I made and how much money we made at the end of the day. So I feel I've kind of always been the same, extremely analytical, always had that entrepreneurship in me even before I kind of knew what it was.
Right, that's awesome. So you spent 10 years. Now I didn't read about this in your bio, but I want you to tell the audience you spent 10 years at a nonprofit for, I believe, Challenge Kids, right?
Mhm.
Or Challenge Kids. I'm not sure if it was teens, and you really created partnerships with Nike and Jordan, etc. Tell us a little bit about that part of your life.
Yeah. It was wild, if I'm being honest, because
We
when
like
you
wild here at Exit Rich.
you know when you go to work at a nonprofit, you don't expect that you will be spending the majority of your time, as an example, running branding sessions for NBA players. So uh, it really went quickly. So yes, we did work with at-risk youth, impacting thousands of at-risk youth a year, from Chicago to Los Angeles and, really coast to coast with New York. But early on, actually Nike and Jordan brand became some of our biggest partners. And they do great work in the community. A lot of people don't always, give them, I think, the credit or the recognition they deserve, but at all times, they're doing great things in under-resourced communities. But we essentially just became almost an activation agency for Nike and Jordan Brand. So yeah, I'd say for the last 5 or 6 years out of that 10-year period, Michelle, I was, traveling the country, helping run these large activations with Nike and Jordan Brand. It was wild.
Fabulous. All right. So, and that's great that you did that. I always think the more you make, the more you should give away
Yeah,
to
I agree.
at-risk children. One thing I did want to mention that I forgot to mention at the beginning of the show is that whoever asks questions or comments and I air it on the show, then we'll send you 3 chapters of my book, Exit Rich. And I'm going to help Jordan write his book.
Yes.
Jordan needs a book.
It's
I will tell you, you got some fans over here. And I don't want to mess up somebody's name, but can you see that?
Yeah, it looks like
Perry,
we have Monica and Rim with some comments, it looks like on my end.
Monica, yeah, and then Kim. Okay, yep, I see it here. Monica and Kim. So excited for the show. It's going to be a great show. Wow, that's really interesting. Okay, so um, I don't hear the echoing anymore. No, my team just walked in everybody for the echo, but the echo magically disappeared.
You're good. It always happens like that. Technology, right? Like you hear something and then it's as soon as someone comes to fix it, it's gone.
Yes, yes. Okay, so how did you get started in AI? Like I know you had your digital
Mhm,
media company, which I believe you still have.
mhm.
But how did you get started in AI?
It came through that, right? So yeah, I have a small business called Accelerant Agency, and we use a lot of software for our clients because I think to grow companies, you really have to make use of the newest technology. So it really happened by chance. I started to see all these AI powered tools, in 2019, 2020, and we started to use them pretty routinely, probably starting in 2021. So after that point, I always kind of had this idea of starting almost something separate that I thought would kind of be the future of the digital strategy space. Funny enough, even before I started my company, I wrote in my business plan, I said, I don't know what it is, but the digital marketing and the digital advertising space is going to change so much in the next 5 years. And even in the original business plan, I wrote down that part of what Accelerant Agency should be doing is essentially saving up money. So then we could focus on, whatever this big shift in the industry is. I didn't know it at the time, but it's AI because I think it's gotten to the point where it's really impacted our daily lives, and especially for your audience, if they're business owners, if they're looking to grow their business, maybe sell their business, it's hard not to pay attention to what AI can do now for your business.
1000%, I agree. Uh, so, artificial intelligence. How is artificial intelligence currently being integrated into the various aspects of business operations?
Yeah, great question. It depends right now. It depends on the business. Depends. I think as an example, the largest companies out there, your Fortune 100s maybe, they're starting to develop their own kind of if we think of the most popular AI tools, which is probably something like Chat GPT. So your biggest companies are essentially creating their own kind of versions of that all their employees can use.
Hmm.
And then I think at the very other end, kind of the smallest of companies, I think they're probably right now the ones that are using it the most, kind of these generative AI tools because there's less red tape, there's less bureaucracy, right? And I think, the majority of companies in the middle are kind of in this wait and see phase, right? They're saying, okay, how are we going to govern this? How are we going to, set up restrictions and guidelines so that our employees can use this and we can grow our company, but also that we can still be safe with our data and we can still protect our proprietary information.
Right.
So I do think you have a lot going on each end of the spectrum right now.
Yeah, it's so funny because I was looking at my Facebook, my news feed, and all of a sudden popped up was this company, I forget the name of it, but how to create your avatar, how to look like a Barbie. and so and so you can look like a Barbie, you can look like Superman, you can look like all these different characters, and it's AI creating your own avatar. Very, very inexpensively on an app that they've created. So it's very interesting. What are some of the specific industries or sectors that really have shown significant advancements and benefits through adoption of AI and technologies?
Yeah, great question. I also think it's important to very shortly hit rewind because AI is not new, right? Like AI has been used in the business sectors since the 80s, pretty routinely. I think why more.
Say that again because AI has been used since the 80s, right?
Yes. Yeah, I mean,
A lot
technically, even
of people
before
don't
that.
know that, right?
Yeah, I mean, technically before that, AI has technically, quote unquote, been around since the 50s, but it's been used in many sectors since the 80s. Kind of the business boom where financial industry was one that was pretty prevalent in the 80s. So AI's usage in these different sectors is not new necessarily, but where we're at now is definitely new, and that's with kind of this more generative AI, which opens it up for essentially almost anyone, right? So before, yeah, your financial sector, they essentially had their own kind of AI models that the industry had been using, to help detect fraud. Investment companies have had their own kind of AI systems for decades, the same thing to help them best invest, portfolios. But the generative AI, which is, kind of what most of us now are, being, that we're seeing, kind of like what you said, Michelle, on social media, that is newer, right? And that's where you can take things like, oh, I can take text and turn it into, yeah, make a Barbie avatar for my business, or to create, something that my small brand or a smaller company can use. So yeah, AI has been around for a long time, but this generative AI wave is much newer, and it's only been around for, about a year or two.
Yeah, we actually have signed an agreement and are moving forward with our own AI proprietary language model and along with a proprietary software model. So we're digging in deep
Mm, I
and
love it.
we're creating something very unique for my specific industry, and so that's exciting. But for clients, like, we're going to create the avatars and stuff, which is going to be a lot more in depth than the Barbie
Mhm.
avatar, right?
Yeah,
Because we're going to train
exactly.
and ask these questions and go back and forth with clients, etc. But there's a lot of issues associated with AI too. You know, is it telling you the truth? Does it lie to you?
Mm-hmm.
And how do you know? You got to always trust but verify. Talk a little bit about that, please.
Yes, AI lies constantly.
Well, you've heard stories. I think maybe you haven't, but there's been lots of stories out there where attorneys have went to court with different pleadings and things like that, and they used AI to write it, and the judge was like, "Get out of my courtroom." You know what
Yeah.
stories I'm talking about, right?
Yeah, there was I wouldn't say famous, it's infamous, but yeah, where a lawyer actually used AI to help prepare the case, submitted essentially some lies, right? They used ChatGPT, they weren't using it the correct way. They submitted that to a court, and obviously it got thrown out. It cited fake cases.
Well, that's
And
multiple. That's multiple attorneys, though. It has.
yeah, that's a good point. I'm sure it's not the first time, but that was kind of the one that grabbed headlines, and it just goes to, you really have to use AI responsibly, and you also have to know how to use it. It's a little bit more of a learning curve
Get
than.
into that. Yeah, we want to get, and I don't know if
Mhm.
that's one of the examples you're going to be working with us later on, but we really want to figure out How do you use it? What's the right way? What's the wrong way? If you want to jump into that right now, you can. I don't know if that's part of your example later.
You know what? Let's just do it because maybe this will be fun, Michelle. We can kind of give people a look at, hey, if you use AI correctly, here's kind of what it is capable of. All right, so I'm going to go ahead. I'm going to share my screen, and I'll do my best, Michelle, to kind of walk people through
Okay.
and give people a little example of what this is and what it can do if you wanted to throw it up there.
We can throw it up there, and then we're going to have, we already have lots of questions that are waiting for you to answer. So, quite a bit of questions here. So, let's go ahead and throw this up here.
All right, there we go.
There we go.
All right, so
All
this
right.
is an
I hope the audience can see it because
yeah, I'm going to zoom in and don't worry. I'm going to do my best to describe what I'm doing kind of here live. Okay. So I am putting in,
don't mess my technology up because
yeah,
not a techie person.
yeah. All right. So I will explain what I'm doing here. And hopefully, even if people are listening to this later on the podcast, they can visualize it. So I am using ChatGPT. All right. And I'm going to go ahead just so this can happen live and people know that this isn't fake, right? I'm hitting enter on this prompt and I'm going to explain to you exactly what I'm doing. All right.
You able to
So
zoom in a little bit more?
yes, I can. Let's see if that's a little
I'm
better
sure
for
there's
people.
people out in my audience that are blind like me. So
All right. There we go.
there we go. There we go. Now I can read it.
All right. So one of the biggest things, Michelle, that we kind of talked about is using ChatGPT or AI the correct way. So, when we talk about AI lying, a lot of that comes from not using AI in the correct mode. So, in this example, I'm in ChatGPT and I have different plugins enabled. So essentially, plugins give ChatGPT, which is a large language model, uh, extremely flexible capabilities, right? So the biggest thing that why or how ChatGPT lies is it not having access to the internet because it essentially cuts off at September 2021. So so many people out there. Business is ever evolving. Things are happening all the time. So if you're asking ChatGPT for something, chances are it's updated or it's changed since September 2021. So in this example, I'm giving ChatGPT access to a couple of different things via these plugins. So I'm allowing it to read the internet in a PDF. I'm giving it access to a spreadsheet and also another feature, which is to create a diagram. So in this kind of prompt that I typed out here live on screen, I said, please assume the role of a financial analyst at Nike. So essentially, I'm saying here is, oh, and as soon as I did that, my screen now went crazy here. So give me a second. I just had it up there and it jumped off. But here, I will actually just show.
Arturo talks about that. He says that's the beauty of being live tech
Yeah, exactly. I had it up there and it just jumped.
Arturo. I like to live on the edge. Look at Steve Jobs when he introduced Apple and you
Yeah,
know, program
ex-
shut down on
exactly. All right. So as I refresh, I have another kind of color coded version that explains it a little better since apparently uh, my chat GPT
let
just
this back
jumped off
in.
the screen.
You want me to let this one back in?
Yeah. We'll do this one.
Oh,
So we
there we
did
go.
it. We
Prettier.
did it live. I've done this before, so I have a nicer kind of color coded version of what happens and kind of the what you get when you run this exact prompt, right? So essentially here, when you give ChatGPT access to plugins, it can do a lot of amazing things. So in this example that I was doing before my page refreshed on me, I was saying, assume the role of a financial analyst at Nike. And I give it access via this red. If you see it's highlighted in red there, I give it access to read a PDF. So this is an actual Nike filing because if you're a public company, you have to make a lot of these documents public, right? So I am asking ChatGPT to read this PDF. And then in the green there, in this long prompt, I'm instructing it to look for certain information about revenue and to put it in a spreadsheet. So I'm asking about fiscal operations for 2019 in this example, right? Because this is a 2019 financial report. And then later in the prompt, and you can see there in the blue, it's probably a little better illustrated this way anyways. I'm then asking it to create a visualization from all of this data. And then you'll see at kind of at the bottom of the screen here, and I'll try to narrate it the best as I can. This is all in one prompt. It takes about 30 seconds to run and to do all this. And what we go from is we go from this 109 page financial filing, and then ChatGPT grabs all of this information. And this information, we checked it, it's all accurate. It comes from different pages in that PDF. So it's not just, oh, it's reading this graph and copying and pasting it. So it's grabbing this different information from different pages in this 109 page PDF. It's making us a table inside ChatGPT, but it's
And
also.
who created the 109-page document?
Say that one more time.
Who created the 109-page document?
Yeah, that's a financial filing of Nikes that they have on their website.
Okay.
Yeah, exactly. And then
everybody raise their hands in the audience if you're keeping up with Jordan, understanding what Jordan's saying.
Hopefully, yeah, it's a lot. Maybe this color coded version's a little better, right? So in this example, if you can think, if you're like a financial analyst, if you are looking at a company, maybe you want to buy them, maybe you want to acquire them or invest in them, there's probably a lot of documents that you're going to have to read. So this is essentially a way that you can use ChatGPT plugins to make sure it doesn't lie to you. You give it access to a PDF, it reads it. It's then creating a spreadsheet based on what you tell it to, because I have a spreadsheet plugin there. And then also it's creating a diagram as well, all in one prompt, all within ChatGPT, all very factually accurate. So that is just one example of something that anyone can do if you use ChatGPT the correct way, how you can take a task that would normally take many, many, many hours, right? A lot of time to read through this document, grab all these stats, put them inside of a spreadsheet, and then chart, certain rows or certain columns in there. It can be done now in a matter of seconds.
That's awesome. So what do people do wrong in most cases?
That's the perfect question. Most people do not know how to use ChatGPT. They just go in there, they find something on the internet, they copy and paste it, and they hope it works. It's a model, right? ChatGPT is a large language model. You have to be able to go back and forth, but most importantly, you have to make sure that ChatGPT has access to the correct information. Even that right there, and knowing kind of like what we talked about, there's a cutoff. If anything has happened in your industry, or if you're asking ChatGPT for something, if anything's changed since September 2021, which everything has, right? It is not going to be accurate. That's how you get ChatGPT kind of lying or making stuff up. Sometimes it will tell you, hey, as a large language model, I don't know this, I don't have access to this information. But other models, Google Bard, there's all these different AI chatbots. Sometimes they'll tell you, but sometimes they'll just make things up.
So so many business people, entrepreneurs, employees, etc. They think it's easy and quick, right? I have my own employees go, oh, I don't have to write prospectus anymore on any of our engagements. I can just go to GPT. But the problem is that people do it thinking it's easy. They don't go back and inspect what they expect, and that's when they get in trouble, like attorneys do. And if you do it correctly, it really isn't as much as a time savings as maybe you thought it would, but it still does save you time in writing documents from scratch, etc. But you got to do it correctly. I think that's the biggest issue right now, are people just, oh my gosh, this is so easy. This is a quick fix, right?
Exactly. Yeah. And I talk about that all the time. In the end, it can save you a lot of time. Don't get me wrong, but a lot of people don't want to put in that initial work to make sure they're doing it correctly, or to make sure that, in this example, Chat GPT has all of the access that they need. So, sometimes people just want the fastest shortcut, but it can end up saving you a lot of time in the long run. But you have to put in a little bit of legwork up front to make sure everything is
I think
correct.
that's the key. That's the key.
Yes.
That's right there. And then you have to also be careful about putting your client's name in there because
Mm.
GPT can take off and run with that proprietary information. So, what's your thoughts on proprietary information?
Don't put it in.
Don't put it in,
Yeah.
y'all. That happened to me. One of
Right.
my
Like,
employees did that. I'm like, no, no,
yeah. Yeah.
no.
I
Yeah,
think I think companies also need to be aware of a couple of things. One, if it's on your website, so many companies don't even know what they have on their website that's already been scraped and crawled, right, by all of these AI chatbots. They don't know, right? A lot of companies, they'll just upload all these PDFs and not have their settings correct, and guess what?
right,
All of that information's public.
right.
But
So,
don't upload sensitive, confidential
don't put your
information.
client's names in there.
Yeah, don't do it. If you don't know what you're doing, don't just upload all of your company's information in there. That's if it's not already public.
It'd be great to get a list of the do's and the don'ts from you, and then we can connect that to your podcast when it comes out. In addition to the live, a list of do's and don'ts. So we're going to get to some questions here. Emily asked, "Are there any accessible entry points or strategies for such businesses to start integrating AI into their organization?" Well, we've already talked about some of that.
Yeah. Yes. there's
Yeah.
there's a lot.
You want
And,
to
and
touch on a few real
yeah,
quick?
and I'm gonna try to make this timely as well, because so many companies run on Windows, right? Microsoft Windows. So many companies. In Windows,
Guilty.
yeah, guilty. Hey, I'm excited about it. I'm on a Mac, but I might buy Windows for this. But I tell people, if you remember, kind of ChatGPT was this big wave, right? Like out of
Right.
nowhere, and everyone's been talking about AI ever since. So wait until Windows releases Copilot. Okay, so write that down if you don't know. But think,
My team, put that in the notes, please. Copilot.
yes,
Windows
I
is
mean,
going to introduce Copilot.
yeah,
Right.
so many companies run their organizations on Windows, on Microsoft Windows. So Windows is releasing Copilot in their newest version of Windows. So think of this: for ChatGPT or all these other AI softwares, you have to log on to a website and use it. So Copilot will be built into the operating system of Windows. I don't think people understand how significant that is and how it is going to change how all businesses are run. Because now all of a sudden, if your company uses the latest version of Windows and you enable Copilot, you can talk to your computer and you can say, "Hey, that email Michelle sent me. Can you read me that spreadsheet and answer this question about it and create a presentation?" And it'll do it just like that. You don't have to enable anything, right?
Wow.
It's going to fundamentally change how businesses operate. It's going to be a pretty big deal.
When is that coming?
They haven't given a date. They've already started to, I believe, release kind of the beta version in small batches. I don't know. They haven't said. All they said is it's coming and it's rolling out.
So is that going to have bugs in it, just like Chat GPT has? Is that going to have some bugs in it where you got to trust but verify and do some of the legwork? Probably the same scenario, I would imagine.
Yeah, I mean any software from Microsoft to Apple to ChatGPT, there's always going to be some bugs, but I think that's why they're starting to release it in very small batches to enterprise clients first, so they can hopefully work out a lot of those bugs before they release it to the general public. But yeah, I think it's worth keeping an eye on, especially if your company or if your organization uses Windows. It's something to definitely, yeah, put that in the show notes for sure.
Awesome. So Harvey said, "Congratulations, Jorna. Jordan, great job. So you got some big fans here. Uh,
Yeah, yeah. What up, Harvey?
Charles asks, Jordan, do you foresee, this is a really good question. Do you foresee any legal ramifications for people who use AI created content? Well, we talked about some with the attorneys going into court,
Sure.
but what other legal ramifications do you see coming down the road?
This is the grayest of gray areas, Michelle. If I'm being honest, right? Because no
We don't,
one
we don't know, right? We don't
yeah,
know.
no one fully knows how this is all going to be litigated, right? So, a big piece of news recently is it was reported that the New York Times will be opening a lawsuit against OpenAI, the parent company of ChatGPT.
Yeah.
There's not a lot of details, and this is all hearsay, but
Is
that
that
is the
because
report.
AI is writing books now? Is that why? Because AI is writing books?
I believe it was because some of ChatGPT's features were able to bypass kind of paywalls. I believe this is all reported. I'm not the end all be all say all here, but yeah, there's going to be so much gray
Yeah.
area with how this is litigated in the long run, because your big publishing companies for so long had put out this information, and then you have these large language models that just kind of said, all right, well, we're going to scrape this and use it as general knowledge. So it's going to be a lot of legal battles that we're going to see in the coming years about companies like OpenAI, the ChatGPT, Google Bard, Microsoft Bing Chat, all of these large language models that have essentially just collected all of this information and are giving it to end users.
Wow. Yeah, there's a lot. There's a lot. There's a lot that we're going to see. A lot that's going to come down the road. I always say you don't know what you don't know. So Jacob asked, what advice would you give to business leaders who want to use AI in their strategies but don't know where to start?
Hmm. Good question, Jacob. I'll answer it like this. Don't start with the tool you think is best for the job. I always tell people start where you're spending the most time on manually repetitive tasks. So I go as far, even in our newsletter, we gave everyone a breakdown. I said, you can even use time trackers, right? Install a time tracker on your computer or your browser. Find out where you're actually spending the most time. So
Woohoo! Let's stop. Let's pause, pause, pause. My team needs to write this down. You can install time trackers. Everybody listening, especially my team, because they need help. We all need help sometimes tracking where does our
mhm,
time go. All we have is time. It's the most valuable possession we have. So my team put that in the notes, time tracker, and then also put what was the other thing we mentioned that Microsoft was coming out with?
Copilot, Microsoft
Copilot.
Copilot.
So let's get those two things in the notes, please. So go ahead. I didn't mean to cut you off, but that was
No worries. Hey, I'm all for making sure we get it in the show notes. It's important.
get it in the
Uh,
yeah.
so hey, that's a great example, right? I have a daily podcast. What in producing a daily podcast is a very manual, time consuming thing. Show notes, right?
Yeah.
So we identified, even with producing a daily podcast, what are those things that are most manually repetitive? And then we found the right tools that would address those. So I would recommend anyone, if you're trying to implement AI into your business, start figuring out where you're spending the most manual time, start to categorize or put those things into different buckets. And then, only then, find those most manually repetitive tasks and find the correct tool, AI powered tool, that can help you in those areas.
It's really probably good for social media, content creation, things of that nature, to really help expedite that process. Staff ask, how can businesses stay updated on the latest AI trends and technologies to remain competitive in their respective markets?
That's the question of the month for sure. It's hard, right? Our team spends many hours every single day keeping up with everything so we can have informed discussions like this, right? So you can subscribe to a bunch of newsletters, watch a bunch of YouTube videos, read a bunch of news articles. It's time consuming. That's actually why I started Everyday AI, right? Because I'm like, I can do this for other people. right? I can keep up with all the news. I can bring on smart people and you can ask questions. So that was kind of a shameless plug, but there's no easy way. There's no shortcut. You really have to, find the right resource that can help you keep up with it, because to keep up with it all manually by yourself, it's a tall task because things change so quickly.
Yeah, and you really need a good AI team,
Mhm.
and we're going to talk about that towards the end of the show. How to look for this team, how to know who to hire, because everybody wants to get in the AI industry. Everybody wants to program AI now.
Mhm.
So, what else do we have here? Emily, how can businesses ensure their employees are adequately trained and prepared to work with AI technologies?
Yeah, that's a good question as well, and it's definitely going to be a growing job market, right? Because all of a sudden, employees are going to have access to all of these new tools and softwares, and even almost like languages, coding languages that they didn't need or didn't have access to before. So I think companies need to dedicate. A lot of companies are starting to create new roles in the C-suite. Like a chief AI officer. Companies have already been doing this for months. So
Now,
I think
can you use
that's,
like a chief technology officer, a CTO, to also learn AI and combine those two roles?
I think it's
Or
going to be so prominent that if the company already has a CTO, I wouldn't try to couple AI onto that person's plate, because normally at larger companies, CTOs have their hands full, and to try to expect them to also take on generative AI strategy and implementation, I think it can be an unrealistic expectation. So I'd say for larger companies that have a full C-suite, they should be dedicating uh, roles to chief AI officers, which, like I said, so many large companies are already starting to do this.
so, is there a lot of people who qualify for that position right now, or is that we're going to see a lot more individuals start training up, getting the training that they need to become that
Yeah,
officer, AI officer?
yeah, fantastic question. Um,
That was
there,
mine.
yeah, I mean, their jobs in high demand right now. I think Netflix actually made a huge splash because they essentially were trying to hire someone for a very important AI role, and there's not a lot of people. And I believe they offered a salary of just under $1 million. I think it was, yeah, $900,000.
Holy moly!
Uh,
They couldn't find anybody.
it's not that they couldn't find anyone. It's right now there's the supply and demand paradigm it's not equal, right? There's way more demand right now than there is supply for these high level AI roles. Um, so yeah, a lot of times companies are having to, yeah, like they did. They put out it at $900,000
And they couldn't
for an
find
AI product
they
manager
couldn't
role.
find anybody.
No, oh, I'm sure they've definitely found someone, but they knew to be competitive, and I'm sure they knew it would create a little bit of a
So the
PR splash as well.
colleges, are the colleges, the tech schools, software schools, development schools, are they teaching AI now?
Yeah, and like I said, most larger company, or sorry, there's plenty of people that have this experience and this background, but it's not enough. So yes, there are people out there that have, 10, 15, 20 years of experience in AI, in machine learning, in deep learning, some of these related fields, but there's not enough right now. And it will take time to catch up because
So it's
yeah.
definitely an industry where kids are going to college should really be on their radar. It's like,
Mhm.
look, here's a huge, huge opportunity because there's not many people doing it or many people trained on it to really start getting into. It's a huge opportunity.
Yeah, and that's a great, like, I could talk for hours about that, like how different universities are responding differently to AI, because like what you said, Michelle, the smart universities right now are creating programs. I did an executive education program for AI at Kellogg. So Kellogg's smart. They're putting it out there. But then you have other universities that are like, oh no, we're students can't use AI. We're not going to teach about it. So it's kind of strange because there does seem to be this. choose a side mentality in higher education with AI right now. But I mean, we have to be able to train up this next wave, this next workforce, because companies are going to be needing more and more of these people.
We are going to have to train up because AI is also going to replace a lot of jobs
Mm,
and a lot
mhm,
of industries.
mhm,
One of the biggest things was researchers in the medical industry, researchers in the legal industry, paralegals. Well, now paralegals are saying, "Oh no, you still need us. You cannot rely on AI." But it's going. It's predicted. Peter Diamante, who's a good friend of Tony Robbins, talked about this and has a conference. He has a huge conference. I forget the name of it, but he's been talking about this for decades now. That
mhm.
AI is really going to replace a lot of jobs. What's your thoughts on this?
It's something I don't talk about a lot because
We on exit rich
I
transparency.
know, I know, I have to give you, because all right, my actual take on it is it's going to be a lot more impactful than I think people want to say, because I think that we want to have an optimistic view of what artificial intelligence can do for the US economy, right? And if we're being honest, if we look at the last 6 to 9 months, you take away all companies that are in the AI related industries. So you take away, as an example, take away Meta, take away Alphabet, Google owner,
Right.
take away Nvidia, take away IBM, take away the big companies that are investing in AI technology, and the stock market's down, right? It's been relatively healthy, even though it might not seem like it. But the Nasdaq has grown, right? The Dow has grown. So, and a lot of this is because of AI, and there's been plenty of studies that these AI related companies are driving that growth. So people think that it's going to keep going. I don't think so necessarily. I think it's going to lead to a lot of job loss, more than even a lot of analysts are talking about. So that's why I think it's important for people to get ahead and learn it now, because I think that will future proof your career or future proof your business, or give you at least a leg up. Once everyone kind of figures out how to use generative AI, if your company has already started to get its feet wet and has started to figure some things out, you'll at least be ahead kind of once everyone else kind of gets on board.
Yeah, that's what we're doing. We're really trying to streamline the process and make things work a lot more efficiently. So we are having less less employees, not because we want to,
Mhm,
but just as a company, in order to be efficient and profitable, you need to.
mhm,
And this kind of thing has been going on for decades, even with or without AI. I mean, that's what some of these machines are that you're putting in these food manufacturing plants and industrial companies, etc. We have an agriculture company for sale, and they've spent, I think, a couple hundred, I don't know, a lot of money, and a couple hundred, I think $2 or $3 million, because this machinery is going to cut the workforce in half. It's going to allow them to run and produce 24/7.
mhm.
It's going to allow them to produce probably quadruple the amount of products they're producing right now, or even more. So there are going to be a lot of jobs that are being replaced. That's why it's so, in my opinion, so valuable and important to talk about those other industries people should get into
Mhm.
that support AI
Yeah. And I
versus
think,
don't, because otherwise we're going to have a lot of people at the unemployment line. What are your
yeah,
thoughts?
yeah. And I think, Michelle, like, to that point, but to kind of hit rewind, you also have to look at what the biggest companies are doing with their task force and what they're doing with their money, right? So, as an example, the biggest companies in the world are investing their money into generative AI. So, they're investing, as an example, Microsoft, right? Microsoft is investing billions of dollars into AI, not just their own operations, but other companies, right? OpenAI, it's one of the biggest investors with OpenAI. But Microsoft, at the same time, has laid off over the past year tens, I think tens of thousands of people. At least they had one big layoff of 10,000 people. So the IBM, same thing. The biggest companies in the world are investing billions of dollars into AI, yet at the same time, either slowly or not so slowly reducing their workforce. So the average person or the savvy business owner out there has to kind of look at the writing on the wall and understand that if you want to keep up, if you want to keep your business thriving, if you want to exit, right? If you want to exit rich,
Max the rich.
yeah, you have to pay attention. Like it's,
Yeah.
I'll say this. I think with even just the internet and social media, I think companies had a nice, easy 10-year period where they could figure it out, right? Facebook, maybe in a couple years. The internet, a website, meh, not for us, right? And you could be fine, but the overwhelming majority of companies now, if they're successful, they've paid attention to websites or social media. The same thing can be true for AI, except I don't think you're going to get a decade. You're going to get a year or two tops,
Mhm.
right? So
Agreed.
you have to get with it and you have to understand. Otherwise, you're going to be on the wrong side of those layoffs.
Yeah, you're going to get left behind. And, statistics have changed dramatically in business. It used to be that 95% of all startups would fail in, of course, 1 to 5 years, right?
Mhm.
Jordan, we all know that. But now, out of 27 million businesses, only 30% of startups are failing, but yet those business owners have been in business for 10 years or longer. 70% of them are going out of business.
Mhm.
And that's because of lack of aim. Aim is always innovate and market. You're in the marketing industry, Jordan, always innovate and marketing. Now it's going to be always innovate, marketing, and AI.
Mhm.
Otherwise, you're going to end up going out of business. So this is huge,
Yeah.
and that's why we had Jordan on the show today, because Jordan, you are my first guest on AI.
All right. I made
They
it.
companies got to start looking at this very seriously and start adapting these language models into a corporation. Otherwise, you're going to be passed by and eventually go out of business. How do you see this affecting the economy and the job market going forward with all these employees being laid off? What are your thoughts there?
Yeah.
Like,
I mean, we definitely still have to look at the other side of the coin because there will undoubtedly be a lot of job creation. There will be new sectors created that didn't exist before in the same way the internet created a lot of new jobs. I think AI will also create a lot of new jobs, but I think it'll in the end, I don't care. I mean, I will argue with anyone all day. I think in the end, it's unfortunately going to be a net minus. In the end, I think we're going to lose far more jobs than we will create. But I think what this can lead to is the same way over the last 5-ish years we've seen kind of the rise of the gig economy. We've seen the rise of freelancers, of startups and entrepreneurs. I think it's just going to double down on that because this also, when smart people get laid off, what do? A lot of them start their own jobs or they start competitors. So I think that if
to start
anything,
a job, what they need to do is create a business.
yeah, yes, thank you for that. Yes, create a cash flowing business. But I think that's what we have to look at. Yes, I think we will end up losing far more jobs than we create, but it is easier than ever now for people to start a business that is impactful and means something through the use of AI. It used to take many months or longer, but now you can create a pretty solid business that people will pay for in a weekend if you know how to use AI tools.
In a weekend. Listen to that. So a lot of employees are going to become entrepreneurs
Mhm.
unless the company really gets up to speed and starts incorporating AI and training on AI. They can't just incorporate it without training. We're
Absolutely.
excited because we've already started. Well, we're starting now. So we're, I think before the crowd. But anyway, so a couple more questions here that we want to read. And number one is Tib writes, what do you envision as the next big development in AI for businesses, and how should companies prepare for these changes?
Oh, that's a good one, Tib. Wow, that's a great question. I think about this sometimes late at night when I can't sleep. Um, But I'll tell you this, I'd say the next big development for companies is just, and this isn't a cop out answer, but I think it is the widespread adoption of generative AI, because I'd still say very few percentage of companies are using generative AI. Their employees are, whether they're telling the company or not. So I see that the companies themselves, businesses, are going to implement company-wide generative AI strategies. So you're going to see whether companies are using. I keep saying Microsoft because I like what they're doing, but they are creating essentially a business. They haven't officially announced this, but it's been reported. But they're creating kind of an enterprise version of ChatGPT, right? So specifically aimed at enterprise companies. So that's kind of the next wave is I see companies officially in the same way that when you start a new job and you get your laptop and you get your Outlook and you get your employee handbook, you're going to get your generative AI kind of basics, right? Whatever the companies are, but I see companies, the next big phase is starting to integrate those tools, kind of similarly how Copilot is going to work on people's computers.
Wow. It's like self-driving cars.
Yeah, kind of, right?
So Hayden asked, how can AI be employed to enhance security measures and protect sensitive data from evolving threats? That's a really good one too.
Yeah. And I think that's why a lot of companies are creating their own large language models, because they're either not sure to the extent of how the other companies may be using data, or they just don't even want to risk it. And they're like, no, we'd rather invest, millions of dollars creating our own technology that we can own, based off of other people's. It's weird, and I don't want to get too technical, but you can essentially tap into some of these bigger companies. Kind of technology through APIs. So you see a lot of companies kind of creating their own as a kind of workaround to not share data. Because here's the thing, if you implement this company wide, there's going to be people who are misusing it, whether on purpose or accidentally. And it is hard for a company to prepare for that, because it's, think of how many times, employees can accidentally hit reply all on an email when they didn't mean to, or, oh, I put the wrong person on this email and now I accidentally sent them our KPIs or
I
our
think we're all
quarterly
guilty
report.
of that.
Yeah, right. So think of that on a much larger scale. It's I get the hesitancy that big companies are going through, but they're going to start to figure it out.
Yeah, so here it brings up a great question that I just thought of. Content creation is king, right? It's still king, content creation. And when you have independent contractors or interns or using Fiverr or any of those companies, you want them to sign off that you own that content, right?
Mhm.
Because there's lots of lawsuits in the courtroom right now over who owns the content. So when it comes from Chat GPT or any of these sources, these AI sources, what happens there?
Yeah.
I
So
just
we
thought
kind of,
of that.
yeah, we kind of talked
It's
earlier.
not your own language model, right?
Yeah, we kind of talked earlier, Michelle, on some of these copyright issues and
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
how things are going to be tied up in the courts.
Yeah.
And I think there's not a lot of ways around that right now, because all the biggest companies are getting sued, right? They are. If we talk about AI image generation, that one's especially sticky, because early on, there's tools such as Mid Journey. There's tools such as Dolly from OpenAI, Stable Diffusion. So there's all these AI image generators where you can put in a text prompt and get an image out. But they were trained on copyrighted works of art, right? So early on, you saw that it would even sometimes accidentally include an artist's signature on something,
Right.
right? So it's
I mean, to me, that's the scary part. Because
Yeah,
I always teach my clients protect your content, protect your content, and
it's hard, but there are other companies which I don't talk about a lot. Maybe I should, such as Adobe, right? So Adobe and their systems, they're saying, hey, we trained our models, their image generation model on only works that they had access to. So they kind of went to bat for companies and said, hey, you can use our product and feel good about the AI images because it's all images that we have access to. And obviously, there still could be bugs or disputes, but you do have companies that are trying to be a little more closed sourced with it, if that makes sense.
right, 1000%. All right, a couple more questions. We're running about to run out of time, but this is such an interesting subject, so we have a lot of activity here. Hayden wants to know another question from Hayden. What are some innovative ways that businesses are using AI to improve customer experiences?
For sure. An innovative way, I guess, is training essentially custom chatbots on your data, right? So, as an example, I'm sure if you order a product online and you might want to return it or there's a problem, a lot of times you're either chatting with a bot, and those bots have been around for 10 plus years, or maybe you're chatting with a live human. So now, what a lot of companies are trying to do is to try to find the something in between because humans are obviously expensive and those old school bots are terrible and they don't know anything. So now they're training essentially these AI bots, such as like a Chat GPT. I just say that so it's easy for viewers and listeners to make that connection in their head, but on all of their data, right? So let's
Yeah,
say if you're a company like Zappos,
that's
right?
what we're actually doing.
Yeah, there you go. So I think that's a smart and innovative way. Or as an example, yeah, like Michelle could put up every single podcast that she's ever produced, every single video, all of her books, right? And she could have people like, hey, hire Michelle as your consultant. I know a lot of innovative companies that are working on that right now, where they're essentially replicating a business leader, everything they've ever talked about, and allowing fans or customers, whatever you want to call it, to have access to that person, as a coach or a mentor. So a lot of companies are doing that. I think that's super innovative.
Yeah. And so Stefan says, what are some common misconceptions or myths that you've encountered, and how can these be addressed?
Yeah, Stefan, great question. Probably one of the most common is people saying like, oh, chat gpt can't write as good as humans. That's terribly false. It can write.
You see a lot of people right now writing books on Chat GPT.
Yeah, some are great, some not so great. As an example, one of the commenters earlier, Harvey Castro, I know he wrote a book on Chat GPT and medicine, right? And he uses Chat GPT, to help produce his podcast and to clone his voice, right? But probably that's one of the most common misconceptions, I'd say, is when people think that you can't get a very high quality written output out of Chat GPT, because you definitely can. I've been getting paid 20 plus years to write for big companies, and it can write about 95 to 99% of the quality of me, a professional writer by trade, but at about 15 to 20 times faster.
Wow. And how are publishing companies? I wonder how publishing companies, New York Times, Wall Street Journal, USA Today, are going to react to that.
A lot of legal messes, right? There's the other story, an author that the name is escaping me, but there was a new book being sold under her name, and she said, I didn't write it, right? But someone else trained a model, fed it all of her previous books, and actually somehow started the publishing process of a book that wasn't hers. So yeah, there's going to be a lot of, hey, if you want job security, go into litigating AI copyright issues, because it is going to be rampant over the next couple of years.
Yeah, and it already is, but
Yeah.
it's gonna exponentially increase. So this, you got a lot of fans on here. Brian says, "I agree with everything he says." Jordan says, and totally agree with Jordan. He says, and then you've got Saran. I'm not sure if I'm pronouncing the name correctly. It will now no doubt replace jobs in some areas like customer service, marketing, etc. So interesting, right? Times will tell. What do you see as the future of AI? I would say, let's say, what, in the next 1 to 5 years?
Oh gosh, 5 years. I don't even think my brain can comprehend. Maybe I'll take an
Oh,
easier
let's
way.
go for 1 year.
Yeah. Let's go 1 year. Let's go 1 year, Michelle. Um, I'll say this. I'll say 1 to 3 because I think over the next year, companies are going to be playing catch up. They're going to be trying to figure this out. So I really see that over the next year, a big push to understand AI and how it can grow companies.
Oh,
After that, I think we're putting on my crystal ball here, or my wizard
I'm going
hat.
to hold you to it. We're going to come back to you in a year and have you back on the show and see what came through.
Hopefully I got a couple of things right. But I think what's going to happen is you're going to have a lot of acquisitions. There's going to be bigger companies, companies that are making nine figures, that are going to get acquired because in a very competitive landscape where everyone is competing for consumers' attention. And it's easier and easier now because of generative AI to create very compelling, very personalized content for consumers. So I think you're going to have in big industries, you're going to have literally companies that are doing 9 figures right now in 2 to 3 years, struggling to keep up. And they're going to get acquired, I think, from the companies that are growing and that are already out and running with generative AI. So if I have to put on my, 2 to 3 year hat, I think we're going to look back at today and be like, oh, wow, can you believe that blank company got left behind and they got acquired by blank? Never would have seen that coming.
Right. Wow. All right. And what about cost? It used to be when you bought what? The first iPad, the first computer, the first this, the first that, the cost was exponentially high. Then it starts to go down. What do you see with the cost associated with AI right now?
It's criminally cheap. It's like what you can
How do you
accomplish.
want to create your own language model from your data?
Sure. I mean, even that's criminally cheap because there's now so many new we look at least 10 to 20 new AI tools a day, and we usually share 2 to 3 of them in our newsletter. There's companies now where it's, $50 a month where you can upload all of your own documents and get essentially a smart chatbot and put it on your website. Those didn't even exist 4 months ago, but now you have so many companies. It is so easy, I think, right now to start using generative AI. And I think the costs are so low. I think, some of these companies eventually are going to start to raise their prices on a lot of these things because right now it's all about you have to get the customers, you have to get them in the door, you have to get them paying, you have to train your models. That's the other thing. All these companies, they need as many users as possible because they're training and they're making their AI software services better based on your feedback, based on all of your data. So it's a race for data and feedback right now. But eventually, I think all of these softwares are not going to be as affordable as they are now. But it's wild to
But
me.
if you really want to hire a programmer, and I'm
Mhm.
sure you know of some AI programmers
Sure.
out there to train your language model on your data, what is that running right now? Because I've heard anywhere from 200,000 on up to millions.
Sure. Yeah. It to tell you the truth, it very much depends on how big the company is and how much data they have, right? Company like mine, not a lot of data. I could do that in a weekend with easy tools, and I don't need a developer. If you
But if you
have,
create an avatar and really get into consistent questioning, feedback with your clients, etc., that's a little bit more involved.
yeah, yes and no. So if you want to do something completely bespoke, absolutely, it's more involved. But I talked about one of these tools on my show today called DID. They're I don't know, they're worth a couple $1 billion now, but you can create a custom avatar on there and train it on your data, and then they have DID chat that you can put on your website. So yeah, a lot of it is you as a business owner, you have to make a decision. You're saying, are we ultimately going to trust this company, give them all of our data, yes or no? And companies that say yes and feel okay with that, there's cost savings to it. Companies that are like, either I don't want to do that, or I need more customization than this service provides, then they are building their own, which a lot of times, like you said, Michelle, can be much more costly, right? But yeah,
Right.
there's other services that are easy to use. You don't have to be a developer. It's drag and drop. You can, even if you're not very computer savvy, you can still figure it out. But yeah, you're giving up kind of quote unquote control of your data. Bless you, and that's not for everyone.
They come in threes, so my sneezes come in threes, so don't be surprised, y'all. So what was it called?
DID.
So if y'all can put that in the comments too, my team, DID in the notes right here, is a good tool. Any other tools you want to name drop real quick?
Oh gosh,
You talk about these on your podcast, your Everyday AI
well, you know
podcast.
what? The timing of this is serendipitous, Michelle, because I never talk about tools on my podcast. And today I did for the first time in episode, what are we in? Episode 86. Yes, I actually talked about tools. So here, I'll give you a very quick
So we're
rundown.
in alignment then.
Yeah. Here, I'll give you the quickest rundown. Seven tools I
All right,
mentioned.
my team, pay attention. Let's get this in the show notes ASAP.
Seven tools I mentioned today on the Everyday AI live stream. DID was the first one. Crazy. We just talked about that. Jasper, which is great for copywriting. It's kind of like a different version of ChatGPT.
So yeah,
Pick.
DID. So we got DID. I just want to make sure my team gets it and puts it in the show notes right now. And then we got Jasper. What else we got?
All right. And then we have Pictory, which is
Picture.
essentially Pictory. You can upload essentially a script, text, and it will create a video with videos that match up and align with the text of your script,
That
right?
was Pictory with a P?
Yeah, like Pictory. Yep.
Pictory. Okay.
Yep. And don't worry, I'll even afterwards, I'll go in the comments here and I'll put them all in there for you. But
Okay. Awesome.
yeah, so we have Pictory, Well Said Labs, Well Said Labs, which I think is a great text to speech. So you can enter in your text, get a great voiceover. So, Michelle, I know you have a very popular book. In theory, you could use a tool like this to narrate chapters of your book with very human-like sounding voices from
Wow.
Well Said
So I
Labs.
don't have to pay. I don't have to pay somebody. I don't have to pay a voiceover anymore.
Yeah, a voiceover, no. And I should mention all of these
Pay
tools.
somebody to read my book, right?
Yeah, yeah. All of these tools I'm mentioning are paid plans. So, they might be $20 a month, it might be $100 a month, but none of these are really free. And also, someone else asked me, they're like, "Oh, are you getting referral kickbacks for all this?" No, I'm not. These are all tools that I've used and I know that they're good. No one's paying me to say this. So we got those. Meet Geek is another one.
I've heard
So
of
what Meet Geek does, this is what we use. It can go on your Zoom calls, your Google Meets, your I think Microsoft Teams, and it sits there as a participant. It records everything, it transcribes everything. But the thing that I like is it gives you an AI summary. It says, "Hey, Michelle and Jordan talked about this. Here's the action plan. You need to do A, B, and C. Here's the overall tone. Here's what went wrong. Here's concerns." Meet Geek is a great tool that can help you get on with your meetings because that's so time consuming. All right, the last two, Perplexity. Perplexity is an AI search. It's something like in between like a Chat GPT and a traditional Google search. So you can still have that conversation like with a large language model, but the difference is it will show you every single source that it used to give you the information. So you can put in a simple question and it'll say, "Hey, we looked at these 15 different articles," and it'll show you them all. So very great for citation and sourcing and really understand if you want to dive deeper. And then last but not least, I'm running out of breath. Whew.
You still got it in you. Come
I
on.
got to do this. I got to take a little sip here. Last but not least was beautiful AI. So that's essentially, think of like Chat GPT, but for creating graphics and presentations. So you can say, hey, I need a this type of graph. Here's the data, and it'll build it for you. Very beautiful. Or like a full presentation. Like, hey, I need a presentation on, the history of artificial intelligence, and it'll create it for you. So yeah, those were some of the best tools that I think have pretty broad use cases for different audiences, whether you're a business owner, a marketer, in sales. One of those seven you should be able to instantly start using tomorrow and save time and to really just grow your bottom line. That's what it's all about.
Absolutely. And that was, man, you just dropped a lot of golden nuggets right there. You dropped a bomb on us. Great,
I
a
was
good bomb.
saving them. I was saving them for the end, making sure people stay and listen to the whole show, Michelle.
Yeah, oh yes, trust me. And so, yeah, so my team just got that in there. If you want to go back and say what they do, that would be even helpful, even more helpful for our audience. We've got a lot of great call them your fans. Doctor, I'm not sure how to pronounce his name. I don't like to mess up.
Dr. Muthana, Dr. Muthana. Yeah, I gotta. Hey,
Dr.
thanks
Muthana.
for these are all great people, AI enthusiasts. They're learning with us every day. So yeah, I got Dr. Muthana, Brian Parton. Thank you guys. Val, thanks. Who else?
I
Arturo
like
came with some
Dr.
great
Muthana. He
questions.
says, I'm glad. He says, I love it. Taking notes live right now.
Yes,
Go
yes.
ahead. Who else did you want to thank?
Yeah, well, everyone else, Arturo, Rim, Question, Monica, Dr. Harvey Castro. Yeah, we had some of our normal everyday AI audience show up for the Exit Rich interview. So thanks. And now you know another great resource in Michelle and her podcast.
And this audience, look, we specialize in helping business owners build a sustainable, scalable, and sellable business when they're ready. And so go out there and get your copy of Exit Rich. But everybody here today will get their 3 chapters of Exit Rich. And we're incorporating AI. We're telling all of our clients they have to incorporate AI because if they don't, they're not going to be sellable. The business won't be sustainable. It won't be scalable, and it certainly will not be sellable. So you've been a great guest, one of my best, one of my favorite. You dropped so many great tips on AI. I think you offered a lot of clarity and just great resources, impeccable. So thank you so much. How can our listeners get in touch with you? Talk about your podcast.
Yeah, thank you, Michelle. Thank you for having me.
I hope you do this podcast too, y'all.
Yeah, I get you. Like I sent you the link. You got to get up early though. That's the problem. It's
I do get
early.
up early. I get up at 4:30 a.m., but I
Oh,
work out
perfect. We're good then. We're
hour
good
and
to
a half. I
go.
have to get to my office. Is the key.
All right. Yeah. So
What
thanks for
makes it
having
happen
me.
for you?
And
Go ahead.
yeah, so people can find me or find us at youreverydayai.com. So yeah, we go live every single weekday morning at 7:30 a.m. Central Standard Time. It's great because I bring on guests. Like tomorrow, I'm bringing on the president of Digital Marketer, who's like, he's very well known, and people can ask him questions live. So I bring on great guests every single weekday morning, and we have discussions and we all learn AI together live. And then the podcast usually goes out about 20 minutes after we wrap up. And then the free daily newsletter about 2 to 3 hours after the show's done.
So how do we subscribe to the newsletter? Just go there every day.
You're so good at this. Yes. It's just youreverydayai.com. Put in it's going to be right there, right front and center on the homepage. Just put in your email address and and then you're going to be learning AI and understanding it at a much better rate. And you're not going to have to waste hours a day. We're going to do it for you. That's what our team does. We cut through the mess, cut through the BS, and only give you the most important information that you actually need to learn and leverage AI.
Wow. Wow. So I know this is like drinking through a fire hose. So you have to go back and listen to Jordan again and again and again. And we will also cut out snippets of like the resources of some of the things that you gave and make sure that we get that out. Any last minute go to nuggets that you want to drop?
Yeah. I'll just end with some advice. The advice is don't be overwhelmed by AI. It can be overwhelming. I get it. I feel that way sometimes too. The only way that you can make AI work for you is to be intentional about it and don't get distracted by trying new things, right? Because that's all of the information out there. I think a lot of it's bad. And essentially, they just say, here's 50 tools, here's 500 prompts, try this, try this, try this, try this. Don't do that. You will get distracted. Do what I said earlier. Focus on where you spend the majority of your time growing your business. If you're trying to exit, sell your business, whatever it may be,
Call
figure
Michelle
out.
Seiler Tucker for that. But go ahead.
Yeah, yeah, right. But that's your audience, right? So spend time figuring out where you're spending your time. And then and only then should you start taking on AI tools or softwares one at a time. Only the ones that are going to help you be more efficient or have a better output in those areas where you're spending the most time. So do that. Don't get overwhelmed. Start slow. Make sure you can measure the return. That's important as well, because whether you're doing this yourself as a business owner or you're trying to push it up in your organization, you have to be able to show the return on investment or the return on time investment or time saved. So take it slow. Start where you're spending too much manual time and go from there. And listen to us because we help you every day.
Listen to Everyday AI. And if you're going to hire a programmer like I did, you want a developer, an AI developer, you want to make sure you do your due diligence.
Mhm. Yes,
And I'm
great
sure you
advice.
can talk to Jordan and he'll give you an entire list of what to ask and what to look for. So, Jordan, again, you've been a great guest. We truly appreciate all of the information, all of the content. Great go to nuggets, great resources. Love to have you back on. We'll probably do like once a quarter because AI is going to just change so rapidly and evolve. And
Yeah.
so I think it's important to do those quarterly updates. I mean, you can almost do monthly updates.
Yeah, it's a lot, right? But at least we'll know then in 3 years if my bold predictions came true or not.
We will know. We'll definitely have you back on. All right. So thank you. Thanks again, Jordan Wilson. Thanks for everyone to ask questions, make comments, and truly, truly, truly a great show. Thank you to my listeners, our followers. Make sure you subscribe to Exit Rich. Make sure you go back and listen to this. More importantly, send this to your network. Share this with your network, employees, um, people in college. We do need to get this university. We need to get AI trained and get the universities up to speed. And share this with your sphere of influence, entrepreneurs, etc. Let's get the message out there and let's everyone tune in, not to just Exit Rich, but let's tune in to Everyday AI. Thanks again. Until I see you next Wednesday.
Thank you.